headlines, sorting through the media bias, exposing the propaganda, and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth, and we have got to get started right off the bat. What has been an astounding turn of events over the last couple of days? Held up on broadcasting last night because didn't want to get into the Navy Yard shooting in D.C. until more information came out, and sadly there's still not a whole heck of a lot of information really out there, mostly just speculation and fodder. We'll touch on some of that as we get a little bit further along into the broadcast, but we're going to start out with something that is far more disturbing in my assessment. Let me read you this article to start with, and we'll go from there. As the title of tonight's broadcast would suggest to you, Obama has waived the ban on arming terrorists, supposedly to allow aid to Syrian opposition. The occupier has waived a provision of federal law designed to prevent the supply of arms to terrorist groups to clear the way for the U.S. to provide military assistance to, quote, vetted opposition groups fighting Syrian dictator Bashar Assad. Some elements of the Syrian opposition are associated with radical Islamic terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda, which was responsible for the September 11th attacks in New York, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania in 2001. Assad's regime is backed by Iran and Hezbollah. Not to mention the Russian government, by the way, guys. The president, citing his authority under the Arms Export Control Act, announced today that he would waive the prohibitions in Sections 40 and 40A of the AECA related to such transactions. Those two sections prohibit sending weaponry to countries described in Section 40D. The prohibitions contained in the section apply with respect to a country if the Secretary of State determines that the government of that country has repeatedly provided support for acts of international terrorism, Congress stated in the Arms Control Export Act. For purposes of this subsection, such acts shall include all activities that the Secretary determines willfully aid or abet the international proliferation of nuclear explosive devices to individuals or groups who willfully aid or abet an individual or groups in acquiring unsafeguarded special nuclear material. The law also continues. The law allows the president to waive those prohibitions if he determines that the transaction is essentially to the national security interest of the United States. Under Section 40G of the AECA, the Obama team must also provide Congress, at least 15 days before turning over the weapons, the name of any country involved in the proposed transactions, the identity of any recipient of the items to be provided pursuant to the proposed transaction, and the anticipated use of those items, along with a list of weaponry to be provided, when they will be delivered, and why the transfer is key to American security interests. To make it worse, Tennessee's very own Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, along with Senator Carl Levin, a Democrat from Michigan, endorsed providing military assistance to the Syrian opposition during appearances on CBS's Face the Nation this past Sunday. Quoted as saying, "Our intelligence agencies, I think, have a very good handle on who to support and who not to support." This, of course, is Corker speaking. And there's going to be mistakes. Really? The first mistake is in turning over weapons to our enemies. How's that? We understand some people are going to get arms that should not be getting arms, but we still should be doing everything we can to support a free Syrian opposition. Later on, the White House released a statement on the waiver. The National Security Council spokesman, Miss Hayden, Kathleen Hayden, if you're so interested in noting, issued the following statement concerning the president's actions with regard to waiving certain controls on military aid in the Syrian crisis. Quoted as saying, "This action will allow the U.S. government to provide or license, where appropriate, certain non-lethal assistance inside or related to Syria. This includes 1. Chemical weapons-related personnel protective equipment to international organizations, including the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, for the conduct of their operations. Chemical weapons-related life-saving assistance for organizations implementing Department of State or U.S. agencies for international development programs to strengthen local Syrian healthcare providers' ability to prepare for and respond to any use of chemical weapons, and 3, defensive chemical weapons, related training and personnel protective equipment to select vetted members of the Syrian opposition, including the Supreme Military Council, to protect against the use of chemical weapons. This action is part of long-standing and ongoing efforts to provide life-saving chemical weapons-related assistance to the people in need in Syria." All right, the long and the short of that, in case I lost you anywhere, is basically they're going to be providing, and according to this statement, logistical aid. Okay? All that statement acknowledges is that they're intending on providing training and helpful equipment for protection against chemical weapons. Well, here's the $64,000 question, ladies and gentlemen. If that's all they're planning on doing, why would the Obama administration need a waiver on arming known terrorists? Because according to that statement, if that's all there is to it, there's no arming going on. So what's the point of the waiver? I mean, this is a serious use-your-brain moment. Why would Obama waive the ban on arming terrorists? First of all, I seriously doubt, despite their legal arguments, that he has the authority to provide this waiver. But whether he does or not, in accordance to this law, this does something that I never once in my lifetime thought I would see happen. The United States of America, as of this moment, its government is officially, by our own definition, a sponsor of state terrorism. We've jumped the shark here, ladies and gentlemen. We have delved into the deep end of the international pool, and we have come out so far into the murk and slime that we no longer can even pretend as if we're still the good guys. Because in this particular instance, in this case, we're not. Obama doesn't need to waive a ban on arming terrorists if all we're going to do is provide training and life-saving equipment in the event of being the victim of a chemical attack. It's utterly ridiculous to think for a second that it would even be necessary to, quote, waive the ban if that's all you were planning on doing. And I'll go you one further than that. According to every military person that I have spoken to in the last 2 weeks and every credible report that I've come across, we are taking active steps to provide beachheads and defensive forward positions where we can in and around the Syrian borders. We are taking every step that would be necessary if we were planning on having a full-on, boots-on-the-ground military operation in Syria. They keep telling us they're not going to do that. But when was the last time more than 2 words of truth came out of Barack Hussein Obama's mouth? I mean, normally, about the most he can spit out is, "I'm Barack." Because, let's face facts, based on Social Security numbers he's used in the past and various forms of legal ID, we don't even know this guy's real last name. Maybe he doesn't know either. I don't know. But you want to put the birther stuff aside for the meanwhile and focus just on this. Why? Why is Obama waving the ban on arming terrorists? Because he's got Bob Corker out here going around telling everybody in the country that, well, we know some of what we're going to do here is going to end up in the hands of Al-Qaeda. We still haven't wrapped our minds around. Ladies and gentlemen, please understand, Benghazi was about arming Al-Qaeda. We were actively recruiting Al-Qaeda to go into Syria and fight. We were arming them, and there are still credible reports that have been coming out all along that the rebels are most likely responsible for the chemical weapon that went off when this so-called crisis began. Despite Barack's lies to Mr. George Stephanopoulos this past Sunday, no one in the world takes these claims seriously. That's right up there with his fictitious number of 80 to 90% of Americans supporting gun control, which, oh, by the way, the Navy Yard shooting has made for a lovely excuse to try and push new levels of gun control. If time allows, and I don't get too much in a rant, we'll touch on the fact that the occupier has decided to implement new executive actions regarding that. If not, we will discuss it in a later broadcast. But I really need to stay focused on this right now because I really need you to think about this question. I'm going to ask it again. Why would Obama need to waive the ban if all we were going to do is provide technical support training and life-securing equipment? He wouldn't need to. He wouldn't. There'd be no reason for it. But here's the deal. He knows they're going to do something else. This ban, and again, I'm really, really wondering, does Obama really have the legal authority to waive this section of the law? Throw the law out for a second involving the trade agreement of these weapons. And let's just look at freaking common sense. How smart is it to offer aid, either military or financial, to people you know want to kill you? Because here's the nasty, deep, dark secret that even the Bob Corkers of the world are not talking about right now, and that is even the Free Syrian Army that, although calling them an army is a bit of an exaggeration, that existed. The guys we wanted to support, the guys we claim we're still trying to get involved here to support, they don't like America either. They're not all death to America and all infidels must die, but they don't like the United States, and they don't want the United States involved in this fight any more than most Americans want to be involved in this. They quietly announced this waiver, by the way. Didn't want it to blow up, but the news got out quickly anyway because there were people paying attention. While everyone's distracted with this shooting in the Navy Yard, this is going on in the back burner. This is the big announcement involving Syrian activity. I mean, other than empty threats from John Kerry after the announcement that he and his Russian counterpart had agreed on a plan of action to try and get folks into Syria and get chemical weapons out of the hands of the Assad regime. So, what is this deal? This is to provide legal cover when we find out what our government has been doing all along. We're through the looking glass, ladies and gentlemen. This is no longer conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy fact. No matter how you cut this, no matter how you try to dissect it, no matter how you try to justify it, we have taken the step. We are now sponsors of state terrorism. And what makes it even worse is we're sponsoring terrorists that have attacked us. I mean, that would be like Planned Parenthood sponsoring this show. Yeah, we're going to give you some money so you can upgrade the show and expand your format and reach a larger audience because we like the way you talk smack about us. Only even then the comparison isn't very fair because the most I do is point out the hypocrisy of the program. Planned Parenthood is more about abortion services than they are about parenthood. Unfortunately, they have been that way for quite some time, if not from the very beginning. Point being, I wouldn't expect Planned Parenthood to call me up and say, yes, we would like to sponsor your show. The same as I wouldn't expect the National Democratic Committee to call me up and say, yes, we'd like to sponsor your show. On the very same ideology, what do we have going on? We have our federal government looking to provide aid, financial and military assistance of an undisclosed, undetermined level to a group of people that, even by their estimates, are around 15% Al-Qaeda. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is their numbers, and I guarantee you, if you use some sense here, I think you would agree, they're going to sell this thing low. They're going to come to you and say, well, there's really only very few people in this bad guy scenario. Most of them are all right folks, and we like them, and we've checked them out, and we're going to be vetting these same people. You know what? If we vetted Al-Qaeda before it became Al-Qaeda, when we were trying to help them to kick the Russians out of Afghanistan, eventually a guy by the name of Bin Laden took over the group, and suddenly they became one of the greatest threats to American security, period. So again, if we just ignore the law that says we can't do this in the first place, common sense dictates we do not help these people. Again, the smart thing to do is to sit back, let them fight it out, and if you really want to be concerned about our interest in the area, we beef up our presence in and around the areas where our allies are going to possibly be needing our assistance to smack back any spillover. In the meanwhile, we let them do what they're going to do, which is kill each other. That's common sense. You do not insert yourself into someone else's civil war. You run the very high risk that these Islamic jihadists that are involved in there, that are on the side that we're supposed to be supporting only because they don't like the Assad regime. They come in there, they do whatever, but they will turn their weapons on us just as quickly as they will turn them on their own people if it serves them to an advantage of some kind, whether it's PR or whether it's actually military. I mean, these groups of so-called rebels have been fighting amongst themselves as much as they've been fighting against the Assad regime. We know this has been going on. How the heck are we supposed to properly vet someone, anyone involving this scenario? But again, I keep coming back to this very simple notion. If, as according to the announcement from the White House, if all we're going to be doing is providing life-defending supplies in the event of a chemical attack and training to help properly use them and training to help properly equip the medical health care providers in the area in the event of another chemical attack, why would it be necessary to lift this ban? Although it hasn't been lifted, it hasn't been ended. It's only been waived. Now let's look at the law again. What is the condition that the chief executive is allowed to do this waiver? The law allows the president to waive those prohibitions if he, quote, determines that the transaction is essential to the national security interest of the United States. Didn't he just say over the course of the last 3 days, previous to this announcement, that this wasn't critical to our national interest? That it was okay to take some time in dealing with this because our direct security interests of the United States are not immediately at issue? What the crap was Congress thinking when they would allow such a provision in a law that's basically designed to make sure that we never become the bad guys? The bad guys, you know, the people who are out there doing bad things, promoting and sponsoring terrorism, the very thing that put Syria on our watch list in the first place because of their sponsorship of Hezbollah. The very reason why we've been at odds with Iran for as long as we have been, again, because they sponsor terrorist training, terrorist activity around the world. They help provide cover. They help provide resources. Excuse me, I'm having to fight off a yawn there. They help provide resources, they help provide training, they help provide money, cash, travel arrangements, false papers. They support, and this is not exactly a newsflash, okay? Anyone who's paid attention and listened knows these things to be true. This is not a wild accusation. This is not a conspiracy theory. We know for a fact Syria and Iran have been state sponsors of terrorist activity around the world for decades. Some say with even longer. But that's where we're going to be at the minute we start arming Al-Qaeda. Although we've already been doing it under the table. It hasn't been admitted to yet. And I still think one of the biggest reasons why Obama has been so hot to start launching cruise missiles into Syria is to try to help hide the made in America weapons that will probably be found. What purpose does it serve? That's the question. This whole thing is use your brain time, ladies and gentlemen. What purpose does it serve to waive the ban? Well, it would alleviate any possible criminal repercussions from sending weapons to these people. Now, in the announcement, they don't claim that they're going to be sending any weapons. The action will allow the U.S. government to provide or license, where appropriate, which means they'll provide by a third-party group, certain non-lethal assistance, almost all of it focused on chemical weapons, related personal protective equipment to international organizations, including the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, and also for the conduct of their operations, also involving chemical weapons, related life-saving assistance for organizations implementing Department of State or U.S. agency for international development programs, to strengthen local Syrian health care providers. And lastly, defensive-related training and personal protective equipment to select vetted members of the Syrian opposition. Okay, this is basically gas masks and other forms of protection, whether injected or medications, whatever might be at question. We're talking about, according to the statement, nothing that would raise to the level of needing to waive the ban. Are you following what I'm saying? Has it clicked yet? They know they're going to do a lot more than just send that little bit of stuff. But that's the part that makes them sound reasonable. That's the part that makes it sound like, oh yes, we are the good guys and you should support us. You should support what we're doing. And just in case you don't, look over here. There's been a shooting. And we're going to talk about gun control while I'm still over here doing this, making my plans to invade Syria. According to the actions and statements of the last 3 days, evidently the only people who have Second Amendment rights are Al-Qaeda. Certainly not the American people. We're not entitled to gun ownership. And again, I know some sad, pitiful, brain-dead Kool-Aid drinker is going to step up and say, you just read what they said. They didn't say they were going to send any weapons. No, they didn't. But they also didn't say they were going to send anything that would make waiving that ban necessary. Nothing in that statement suggests that it would be needed. Why? Why would you have to waive the ban on arming terrorists if you weren't planning on arming them? And you don't arm them with gas masks. You're not arming them with body armor. That's not arming. Arming is when you give them weapons or provide money to a third party for them to get weapons. That's what the licensing thing was all about. Okay? We're going to pay for something to somebody else, and then they're going to deliver it. But then when we do that, well, then that third party becomes responsible for vetting the rebels in question. So, if some of that ends up in the wrong hands, well, that's not really our fault. France dropped the ball, or Germany dropped the ball, or whoever is supposed to be doing the vetting, possibly even Russia or Turkey. Who knows? Maybe we'll just let Hezbollah do it. Although then, I'm pretty sure Al-Qaeda won't end up with it, because that's, we're talking about two different branches of Islam here, and whenever they lack some infidel to try and kill, they're usually trying to kill each other. I mean, we really are through the looking glass here. We are supporting terrorism. Supposedly, this is just to allow aid to Syrian opposition. But this is really so that there won't be any legal ramifications when these weapons end up in the hands of Al-Qaeda members. And what's going to happen, you think, when Al-Qaeda gets armed? What's going to happen when we license body armor and, there was a clerical error, and instead armor-piercing weapons are sent instead? A clerical error. Like happens so often. Well, we were going to do this, but look what else happened. The occupier has crossed the line, and it's going to be up to Congress to pull this back. But what are we supposed to do when Congress is giving him a green light to go do whatever he wants to do here? I mean, I don't know what he's got on Corker. I don't know what he's got on McCain. I certainly don't know what he's got on Graham. But these are people who are supposed to be standing up on the side of conservative values and everyday common sense. And everyday common sense tells you we should not be involved in what's going on in Syria. I mean, it's already been embarrassing enough. It has been bumbled from the start. There still is no clear policy when it comes to this, and there's certainly no clear objectives. You've got 1 minute talking about how this would severely diminish the Assad regime's ability to do whatever, and then it'll be incredibly small. It'll be hardly noticed. We're just, throwing pillows at him or something. We're crying out loud. It's time we started demanding some real answers. You, ladies and gentlemen, if you happen to be listening and you're a U.S. citizen, you need to be calling your elected officials. Bombard them with emails, bombard them with faxes, and call their offices and find out where do they stand on this issue and what is it that they think's going on. Find out what they can and will tell you, and then make it clear to them that if they don't start representing you, like what they're supposed to when they go to D.C., they're supposed to represent the people of their district. Make it clear to them that if they don't start representing you, you're going to do everything you can to make sure they don't get to go back to D.C. for another term. Because I promise you, the one thing that will split party unity and the one thing that will split the solidarity of the bipartisan efforts to get us into the middle of another conflict, the one thing that can cut through all that crap is the honest-to-goodness fear that their individual ability to continue to be part of the DC power base will come to an end. That'll get their attention. We've got to hold them accountable so they'll hold the occupier accountable. And all of this just constant back and forth about how this needs to be done. Oh, but it's okay if it doesn't happen right away. Time is of the essence, but we have time to build a coalition. We're going to get allies, but nobody wants to go with us. Russia is going to defend Assad, but they'll help us if we can prove that they use chemical weapons. Ultimately, here's some more common sense. If you're going to attack somebody, then you just bloody go ahead and do it. You don't say, oh, we're coming. You don't pick up the stick and say, look, we've got our stick. We're about to come over there. You just do it. And it's almost equal with the old adage of the fact that it's better to ask forgiveness from the international community than to ask for permission. Because here is one thing I can promise you. Assad's weapons of mass destruction are being moved around and hidden as we speak. A good number of them already have been hidden and moved. So if you honestly think that Russia and then any international group is going to get in there, find, take control of, dismantle all of the Syrian chemical weapons at this point, you're a bigger fool than Barack Hussein Obama is. Barack has been a moron from start to finish with this, but to be fair, it's not really his fault. He is just a front guy, and whoever it is that's pulling his strings, they're a bit brighter. And this conflict, there's something to be gained for them out of this. And, you know, maybe I need to put my tinfoil hat on all of a sudden. But I got to tell you, I think it's pretty clear that the occupier is not the brain behind the operation. He didn't get himself into this position because all he can really do effectively is read a teleprompter. An impressive skill, actually, but not one that translates well into the real world. Going to take a quick break. When we get back, we will continue the discussion. So please stay with us.
Tap into the truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog posts and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio.
That's right, Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker. And as you probably know by now, you can also find this show along with our blog talk version of the show on iTunes. You can also find the blog talk version of the show on Stitcher.com and at TuneIn.com. Meanwhile, if you haven't already checked out TapIntoTheTruth.com, I highly recommend that you give it a peek. Check out the links to the past broadcasts. Check out past blog postings. Check out our friends and sponsor page. Take a look at some of the other various links to conservative news websites and sponsors of the show. Check out the variety of folks that are helping to bring you Tap Into the Truth, and folks that Tap Into the Truth tries to offer a little bit of assistance to keep them going as well. At any rate, let's get back to this, because I really I don't know how effective I'm being here at communicating the very simple, basic thought. I have been a proponent of finding Barack Obama ineligible to hold the office for a very long time. The question about his eligibility to be the President of the United States has not been dealt with. It has not been answered. And every time that you actually say, hey, show us some proof, then we get the Bill Maher's of the world coming out and saying, oh, do you see how stupid these guys are? Time and time again, they've come out and said, look at our obviously fake birth certificate. That should be enough, but it's never enough. You can't convince these people. They want you to think that we're crazy for just asking the question. And then when they fail to come up with any actual proof, somehow they still act like the fake crap that's been put out there is proof. Just like Barack's numbers on gun control polling. 80 to 90% of Americans are with me on gun control. That was never the case. The closest you ever got was right after the Sandy Hook incident, and I am sorry, but you never got to 80%. You never got above 50%, ever. Now, maybe amongst the polling numbers, if the only people you polled were Democratic voters inside D.C., you probably could get close to 90% there. Although, I'm guessing, since the shooting in the Navy Yard in D.C., that even some of those folks might have changed their mind just a little bit, because it's pretty obvious that the gun-free zones, as the argument has been made for some time, by the way, by those of us on the right, the gun-free zones are really just a big old bullseye. Here, come shoot us in this place. I really need you to think for yourself on this one, and I need you to tell me. Send me a message. Send me a direct message on Twitter. Go over to Facebook. Send me a message there. Tap Into the Truth. Go to the website and leave me a message there. There's links to send us emails. There's links to just send a message to do the contact thing. Those two are near the bottom of the homepage. Scroll down past the videos and the other stuff, and down near the bottom of the homepage, there's links that you can contact us. I want to hear what you guys think. Okay? What do you think would be the real reason for having to waive the ban? Because if all he has in mind is what they claimed in this statement, it wouldn't be necessary. Obviously, they know they're planning on doing more, and they know that it's more than 15% of these vetted rebels that have ties to Al-Qaeda and other jihadi organizations. It's official, ladies and gentlemen. The United States of America, or our government at any rate, has become an official state sponsor of terrorism. And until Congress intervenes and the Supreme Court stands by it, that's the way this is going to be. We're no better than Syria or Iran anymore. That's not my America. I hope it's not yours. Stand with me in calling for our elected officials to be accountable and put a stop to this. No state-sponsored terrorism from the United States of America. No arming Al-Qaeda. No giving money or weapons to the enemies of freedom. That's tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to pull this one to a close, but please, don't take my word for it. You can find this out there on your own. But don't take their word for it either. Do your own research. Use your brain. Come up with your own answers. This cannot be allowed to stand, ladies and gentlemen. Please stand with me. And be prepared. Because it's past time for us to tap into the truth on this one. Have a great night, everybody. And we'll be back again soon. Good night, everybody.